The soft sound of a piano filled the air, mixing with the discreet clinking of silverware against china. For Ryan, this was the sound of peace. Amidst a chaotic schedule of meetings, million-dollar decisions, and the constant pressure of staying on top, his daily lunch at this small, elegant French bistro was a sanctuary. It was a slice of tranquility in his noisy world. The food was impeccable, the atmosphere serene, but the real reason for his loyalty to the place had a name: Lena. She moved through the dining room with a grace that seemed choreographed. She wasn't just a waitress, she was the soul of the place. Her dark hair was always pulled back in a neat bun, and her brown eyes emanated kindness. She never needed a notepad for Ryan's order. "The usual, Mr. Ryan?" she would ask with a smile that seemed to illuminate the darkest corner of the room. "You know it?" "Lena, it's the best part of my day," he would reply, feeling the tension in his shoulders dissipate. It was always a Dijon mustard steak, rare, with au gratin potatoes and always a glass of the house red wine. Their conversation was brief, professional, but charged with a comfortable familiarity. She would ask about his day and he about hers. They were small islands of normalcy in his extraordinary life. Lena didn't see him as the millionaire on the cover of business magazines, but simply as Ryan, the customer at table 7, who liked his steak cooked a specific way. And he in turn saw in her a real person, someone whose smile wasn't for sale and whose kindness was a gift, not a formality. However, this peace was brutally interrupted once a month. The tradition was immutable: the monthly dinner with his fiancée Isabella and her parents Julian and Camille. The setting was the same elegant bistro, but the atmosphere transformed completely. The air, previously light and welcoming, became dense, heavy, with formalities and unspoken expectations. The first thing Ryan noticed was Lena's absence. On these dinner nights, she was never there. Service was handled by another waiter, an older man, efficient but lacking Lena's human warmth. Ryan even asked about her once. "It's her night off," the waiter replied curtly, shutting down the subject. It seemed an unlikely coincidence, but Ryan, lost in his desire to please his new family, let it slide. Isabella was the epitome of elegance, beautiful, cultured, with a smile that could disarm armies. Ryan loved her, or at least he loved the idea of her. He loved the way she seemed to complete his life, the touch of sophistication she brought. Her parents, Julian and Camille, were of an old French lineage and made sure everyone knew it. Julian was a tall man with impeccable posture and a gaze that seemed to assess the price of everything and everyone. Camille was the image of the European matriarch with her pearl necklaces and an air of subtle superiority. And then the show would begin. "Ah," Julian would say to Isabella right after the appetizers arrived, "I just remembered that story about our cousin in Avignon. Ah, c'est incroyable." And just like that, the iron curtain of language dropped over the table. The conversation flowed in rapid, melodic French, leaving Ryan completely isolated. He didn't understand a single word. All he could do was smile, nod, and try to decipher their body language. He saw the knowing glances exchanged between the three. He saw Camille's contained smiles, Julian's expansive gestures, and Isabella's delicate laughter. They weren't just conversing. They were connecting on a level he could never reach, and they seemed intent on highlighting that fact. Occasionally, Isabella would turn to him, placing her hand over his. "Don't worry, my love. Just family pleasantries. Dad is telling a story about a vineyard," she would say, her voice sounding like a rehearsed consolation. But Ryan was no fool. He had built an empire from nothing, based on his ability to read people and situations. He saw the difference between small talk and the glint in Julian's eyes when he looked in Ryan's direction and said something that made Camille let out a muffled giggle. He felt like an exhibit, a curiosity they openly discussed, protected by the language barrier. The feeling was humiliating, a knot of powerlessness forming in his stomach. "Why don't you speak English so I can participate?" he asked Isabella one night in the car driving home. "I feel like a complete stranger." Isabella sighed, a long, tired sound as if his question were a burden. "Ryan, darling, you are so sensitive. It's their mother tongue. Sometimes the words just flow. It's more natural. It's not about you. It's just old, boring family stuff that wouldn't interest you anyway." He wanted to believe her. He looked desperately at her face, so perfectly beautiful under the city lights, and forced himself to swallow his doubts. He loved her. He was about to marry her. This was the family he was choosing. And if the price of this perfect life was feeling like an idiot once a month, maybe it was worth it. At least that's what he told himself, while the echo of the French laughter still resonated in his ears. A constant reminder that at that table, he was and perhaps always would be an outsider. Night fell over the city, and with it the familiar weight settled in Ryan's chest. It was the third Thursday of the month, dinner night. As he adjusted the knot of his tie in the hallway mirror, he saw Isabella behind him, finishing fastening a diamond earring he had given her for her birthday. She was stunning in a blue silk dress that enhanced the color of her eyes. "Ready, my love?" she asked, her voice soft velvet. "Always ready for you," he replied, forcing the smile she expected. The drive to the bistro was filled with Isabella's light, superficial conversation about the wedding preparations, the venue on the French Riviera, the flowers, the guest list that seemed mostly composed of her distant relatives and friends. Ryan just nodded, his mind already bracing for the disapproval that awaited him. He loved Isabella, but he hated these nights. He hated the feeling of being an expensive accessory, displayed but not truly included. Upon entering the restaurant, they were greeted by the maitre d', who led them to their usual table, the best in the house, overlooking the small internal garden. Julian and Camille were already there, a glass of champagne in their hands, looking like royalty on their throne. Pleasantries were exchanged, air kisses, polished smiles. The usual waiter, the grey-haired man with the severe face, was nowhere to be seen. In his place, a young man who seemed nervous approached. "Good evening. Unfortunately, Anthony called in sick tonight. I will be taking care of you," he said, fumbling slightly with the menus. Julian dismissed him with an almost imperceptible wave of his hand. "Bring us another bottle of the same champagne." Ryan felt a pang of disappointment. At least the familiarity of the old waiter was a constant. Now even that had changed. He prepared himself for the linguistic isolation, the long night of empty smiles. But then the young waiter returned, not with the champagne, but with an apologetic expression. "Pardon me, sirs, but my colleague will be taking over your table. She has more experience with the cellar." And as if stepping out of a dream, Lena appeared. Ryan's heart leaped. A genuine warm relief flooded him. There she was, his oasis of normalcy, wearing the same impeccable black uniform, the same discreet smile on her lips. Their eyes met for a brief second, and he saw a flash of surprise in hers too. "Lena, what a pleasant surprise." "I didn't know you worked the night shift," Ryan said, his tone more animated than it had been all day. "Sometimes when they need me, it's a pleasure to see you." "Mr. Ryan, and good evening, everyone," she said, her voice calm and professional. As she distributed the menus with silent efficiency, Isabella shot a curious look at Ryan, one eyebrow perfectly arched. "You two know each other." "Lena handles my lunches here. She's the best," he explained, feeling strangely proud. For a moment, the dinner felt different. Lena's presence was a comfort, a bridge to his familiar world. She took their drink orders with her usual grace. But Ryan, an attentive observer by nature, noticed something. There was a stiffness in her shoulders he had never seen before. The smile didn't quite reach her eyes. She seemed tense. It was when the main courses were served that the inevitable happened. Julian, after taking a sip of his expensive red wine, wiped his lips with the linen napkin and turned to Camille. "Alors, ma chère. The news from the lawyer is promising," he began in French, and it was as if a switch had been flipped. Lena's face, which was leaning in to pour water for Ryan, lost all color. It was a subtle change, but for Ryan, who was watching her, it was like seeing a statue crack. Her hand holding the silver pitcher trembled for a fraction of a second. She straightened abruptly, mumbled an "excuse me," and moved away from the table almost too quickly. The conversation in French now dominated the table. Camille responded to Julian, gesturing elegantly. Isabella interjected, laughing at something her father said. Ryan was once again on his solitary island, but this time his attention wasn't on them. It was on Lena. He saw her across the room near the bar, pretending to polish wine glasses. Her movements were mechanical, and her gaze was fixed on nothing. She was pale as a ghost. What could have happened? Had he said something? Maybe she was feeling ill. Worry began to erode the edge of his own humiliation. He tried to catch her eye, but she seemed to actively avoid looking in the direction of his table. Dessert was ordered, crème brûlée for the ladies and chocolate soufflé for the men. Lena brought the dishes, her hands now visibly trembling. She placed Ryan's plate in front of him without a word. Without the usual "enjoy your meal," her eyes were downcast, focused on her task with desperate intensity. "Excuse me," Ryan said, pushing his chair back. "I need to use the restroom." The relief of escaping that table, even for a few minutes, was immense. He walked down the corridor leading to the restrooms, the sound of the piano and conversations fading behind him. The hallway was dimly lit, decorated with black and white photographs of Paris. It was silent. When he was a few steps from the door, a shadow moved. A hand grabbed his arm with surprising force. He turned, heart pounding, and came face to face with Lena. Her eyes, usually so calm and gentle, were wide, filled with an emotion he couldn't decipher. "Fear, urgency, panic." "Ryan," she whispered, and the use of his first name without the "Mr." shocked him as much as the grip on his arm. Her voice was a shaky breath. "Listen to me carefully. Don't go back to that table. You need to leave. You need to leave right now." Ryan was speechless, looking at her face, at the terrified sincerity in her eyes. "Lena, what is going on? Are you okay?" She shook her head impatiently and glanced over her shoulder as if afraid of being overheard. "There's no time to explain everything. Just trust me, please." "Trust you? Why? What is—" She interrupted him, her voice dropping even lower but gaining a thread of steel. "My mother is French. I grew up speaking the language at home. I'm fluent." She paused, letting the weight of those words settle. "I understood everything they said. Every word. And they weren't talking about family matters." Her eyes filled with tears, but her voice remained firm. "They were talking about you." Lena's words hung in the rarefied air of the corridor, more impactful than a scream. "They were talking about you." Ryan's brain struggled to process the information, to connect the terrified woman in front of him with the serene waitress who served his lunch. The sound of the piano, once a balm, now seemed like a mocking soundtrack coming from the dining room, where the farce continued. "What? Talking what?" he managed to ask, his voice a hoarse whisper. "Isabella wouldn't do that. You must have misunderstood." It was a reflex, a desperate defense of the world he had so carefully constructed. Lena's eyes shone with fierce urgency. "Ryan, please, we don't have time. Someone could walk out at any moment." She looked around, her paranoia becoming contagious. "Come with me." Quickly. Without waiting for an answer, she pulled him down the service corridor, opening a metal door that swallowed them into a completely different universe. The cold, perfumed air of the restaurant was replaced by a wave of heat, the smell of garlic, butter, and hot metal, and a cacophony of clanging pots, shouted orders, and the hum of giant exhaust fans. They were in the kitchen. For Ryan, it was like stepping through a portal. He, who only knew the polished facade of the dining room, was now backstage, where the magic was made with sweat and fire. Lena guided him past chefs in tall hats and hurried assistants, who barely noticed the presence of the man in his expensive suit. She led him to a secluded corner near the industrial refrigerator door, where boxes of fresh vegetables were stacked. The noise was slightly muffled there, and they were enveloped in a semi-privacy created by the organized chaos. She finally released his arm, but her gaze held him captive. She took a deep breath, as if gathering the courage to pronounce a sentence. "They call you Le Fou Américain," she said, the French words sounding like poison. "The American fool." Ryan felt a punch to the gut. That nickname explained everything. It explained the contained smiles, the sidelong glances, the veiled condescension. It wasn't just a language barrier, it was a wall of contempt. "They were toasting," Lena continued, her voice trembling with contained indignation, "toasting the success of the plan. Julian was bragging about how easy you are to manipulate. He said your need to have a family has made you blind that you would buy any story they sold." Every word was a shard of glass tearing through the happy memories he had. He remembered the first time he met Isabella's parents, how hard he tried to impress them, the relief he felt when they seemed to accept him. Now he saw that acceptance for what it truly was, the assessment of a target. "Plan? What plan?" Ryan asked, although a part of him, the instinctive part that made him a master of business, was already connecting the dots with alarming speed. The marriage, Lena said, her eyes welling up with compassion. It's not about love, Ryan. It's about your money. It was all planned by Isabella. She orchestrated it. She approached you with this sole purpose. No. The word screamed inside his head but couldn't escape his lips. Not his Isabella. The Isabella who comforted him after a tough day. The Isabella who whispered plans about their future in the dark of night. The Isabella whose face was the first thing he wanted to see in the morning. As if reading his mind, Lena continued, her voice now firm, exposing the naked truth. Their plan is to finalize the wedding, take you to France for the honeymoon. There they have a lawyer, a distant cousin who has prepared a series of documents. They intend for you to sign them, claiming they are formalities to buy a summer house for you two on the Côte d'Azur. A wedding gift from them to you. Ryan felt the air thin. He remembered that conversation. Isabella had casually mentioned a few weeks ago the dream of having a house in France near her family. He thought it was romantic, a gesture of unity. These documents, Lena said, swallowing hard, are actually powers of attorney and asset transfers. They give Julian total control over your main investment accounts and properties. They would use the language barrier and your trust in her to make you sign your own financial ruin. They were laughing about how poetic it would be to steal everything from you in their homeland, using their own language as a weapon. Ryan's world tilted and then shattered. The noise of the kitchen disappeared, replaced by a high-pitched ringing in his ears. Every moment of their relationship flashed before his eyes in a painful instant. The first date he thought was chance, the speed with which she said, "I love you," her insistence on knowing, his business structure out of curiosity, the way she always discouraged him from hiring independent translators or lawyers for his European deals, insisting her father could handle everything. It was all a lie, a magnificent and cruel performance. The love he felt, the foundation upon which he was building his future, was quicksand, and he was sinking, smiling, while the architect of his destruction held his hand. The monthly dinners, my God, the monthly dinners weren't family traditions. They were board meetings, strategy sessions, where he was the only topic on the agenda. The project to be completed, the prize to be won. He was the guest of honor at his own execution. He leaned against the cold metal wall of the refrigerator, the chill seeping into his expensive suit, but not as cold as the ice forming in his heart. He looked at Lena, the waitress he barely knew, the only person in that room who told him the truth. In her eyes he didn't see pity, but a silent strength, an unexpected solidarity. "Why?" he managed to say, his voice failing. "Why are you telling me this?" Lena looked away for a moment at a copper pot hanging on the wall. "My father, he went through something similar. A woman tricked him, took everything from him, destroyed our family. He was a good man, trusting like you. So I see the same goodness in you every time you come for lunch. I couldn't stand by and watch the same story repeat itself. No one deserves that." He closed his eyes, the image of Isabella's smiling face etched on his eyelids. But now the smile looked different, predatory, false. Love turned to ashes in his mouth. The pain was overwhelming, a wave that threatened to drown him, but beneath the pain, something else began to bubble up. Something old and familiar, the same steel determination that pulled him out of poverty and put him on top of the world. The pain wouldn't drown him. It would turn into fuel. They called him a fool. They were about to find out how terribly wrong they were. The buzzing in Ryan's head gave way to a chilling, terrifying clarity. The man who went down to the restroom corridor was not the same man now standing in the noisy corner of the kitchen. That man was a happy fiancé, a future son-in-law. This new man was a general on a battlefield he didn't know existed, and he had just received the map of the enemy territory. He looked at Lena, and the gratitude he felt was as overwhelming as the betrayal. She wasn't just a waitress. She was his only ally. "I need to go back out there," Ryan said, his voice surprisingly firm. "I can't let them know that I know." "Not yet." Lena frowned, genuine concern on her face. "Are you sure? You don't have to face this alone. You can just leave." He shook his head, a shadow passing over his eyes. "Leave? No, they won't just disappear. They'll come after me in other ways. And they took something from me, Lena. My trust, my happiness. I'm not just going to hand that over." He took a deep breath, the warm kitchen air filling his lungs. "I need your help. You're the only person I can trust right now. Anything you might have overheard, any detail, no matter how small." "The lawyer," she said promptly, her mind returning to the conversation at the table. "Julian mentioned him by name. It's an unusual name. I wrote it down on a napkin." She reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a small, crumpled piece of paper, handing it to him as if it were a state secret. "They said he's infallible, that his paperwork is a work of art." Ryan took the napkin. The name written there was the first tangible piece of his counter-offensive. It was the first ammunition for his silent war. "Thank you, Lena. You don't know how much this means." "Be careful, Ryan," she whispered. "They are dangerous." "I know," he replied. And for the first time that night, a ghostly smile touched his lips. "But so can I be." Walking back to the table was the longest walk of his life. Every step was an act of will. He could feel the stares of the other customers, the sound of the piano, the smell of the food, but everything seemed distant, as if he were watching a movie of his own life. As he approached the table, Isabella turned, a perfectly concerned smile on her face. "Darling, you took a while. We were worried. You look pale. Is everything all right?" Ryan took her hand, the touch of her skin now sending a repulsive chill up his arm, but he forced his face to soften into an expression of tranquility. He sat down and looked at her, at Julian and at Camille. He saw their faces as if for the first time, the lines of greed around his father-in-law's eyes, the smug satisfaction in his mother-in-law's smile, and worst of all, the cold calculation behind his fiancée's loving gaze. "I'm fine, my love. Just a little under the weather," he lied smoothly. "I think it was the excitement of the night, all our plans coming together, but I'm great now. In fact, I've never been better." The dinner ended with toasts to the future, to the wedding, to the new family. Ryan raised his glass, his eyes meeting Julian's. He smiled. Her smile they interpreted as naive happiness, but which was in fact a silent promise of reckoning. In the days that followed, Ryan became the greatest actor of his life. To Isabella and her family, he was the dedicated fiancé as always, perhaps even more so. He accelerated conversations about the preparations, showed enthusiasm for the idea of the house in France, validating their plan at every turn. Meanwhile, his secret life began. His meetings with Lena were clandestine and meticulously planned. Away from the bistro, they met in anonymous cafes across town, on park benches under the shade of old trees. In these meetings, the dynamic between them changed. They were no longer customer and waitress, but strategists, partners in a righteous conspiracy. Their language was the weapon they chose, Ryan said at one of their meetings, the steam from his coffee rising between them. "I want to understand that weapon. I want to know what they are saying." And so Lena became his teacher. The French lessons began. They weren't formal classes with books and grammar, but survival lessons. She taught him key phrases, insults they might use, financial and legal terms. With every word he learned, he felt a piece of his power returning. Learning the language of his betrayers was an act of defiance, a way to steal the advantage they believed they held. He practiced tirelessly, his pronunciation improving daily, driven by a motivation no language course could offer. Meanwhile, Ryan put his vast resources into motion. He made a call to a man he hadn't contacted in years, the best and most discreet private investigator in the country. "I have a job for you," Ryan said into the phone, his voice devoid of emotion. "I need everything on a man named Julian and his legal associate in France." He spelled out the name Lena had given him. "Leave no stone unturned. I want to know about every bank account, every failed business, every enemy he's ever made. I want the skeleton of every closet." Lena, in turn, became his eyes and ears. Julian and Camille, sensing victory was near, grew careless. They continued to lunch at the bistro, openly discussing the final details of their scheme in French. Right in front of the waitress, they considered part of the furniture. With her heart in her mouth, Lena began recording them. Using a small voice-activated digital recorder in her pocket, she captured fragments of conversations while serving coffee or clearing the next table. They were pieces of a dreadful puzzle: names of banks, dates of transfers, laughter about Ryan's naivete. The weeks turned into a month. Ryan's dossier grew daily. The investigators' reports began to arrive, painting a grim picture of Julian, a trail of failed business partners and lawsuits hushed up across Europe. He was a professional financial predator. Lena's recordings were even more damning, providing the intent and method in their own arrogant voices. One afternoon, on a park bench with autumn leaves falling around them, Ryan and Lena reviewed the evidence. He heard Isabella's voice in one of the recordings, laughing with her mother about the expensive wedding dress Ryan was paying for. "It's the least the fool can do," she said. "Pay a small price for the empire he's about to hand over to us." In that moment, any lingering pain in Ryan's heart crystallized into a pure, hard purpose. He looked at Lena, whose silent bravery had made all this possible. "It's time," he said. "It's time to schedule the final dinner." The plan was meticulously elaborated over the following weeks. Every detail was considered, every possible response anticipated. It was like a game of chess, where Ryan needed to anticipate several moves ahead. "We can't just confront them with what we know," Ryan explained to Lena as they reviewed the strategy for the 10th time. "We need to corner them in a way they can't escape. We need them to fully expose themselves." Lena nodded, understanding the delicate nature of what they were about to do. She knew that people like Julian and his family were slippery, skilled at denying accusations and turning victims into villains. "The problem with people like them," Ryan continued, "is that they are experts at manipulating the truth. If I simply confronted them, they would create a new narrative. They'd say I've gone crazy, that I'm paranoid. Worse, they could claim I'm trying to avoid the marriage for some shady reason. So we need to catch them red-handed," Lena concluded. "Exactly. And for that, we need to use the same weapon they did, French." The centerpiece of the plan was Ryan himself. For weeks he had studied with Lena, learning not just the language but also the culture, the mannerisms, the nuances. He now knew how the French gestured, the subtle facial expressions, the way to tilt the head in agreement or disapproval. More importantly, he had learned to listen, to detect the small changes in tone that indicated sarcasm or contempt, to notice when a pause was natural or calculated. Ryan's French would never be perfect in such a short time, but it didn't need to be. He only needed to understand enough to grasp the general meaning, to recognize when they were talking about him or his business. And for that, he was more than prepared. "The dinner needs to be special," Ryan said, pacing in Lena's small apartment, which had become their headquarters. "It needs to be an event they can't refuse." "Julian's birthday is coming up," Lena suggested, consulting a calendar where they had marked important dates. "He'll be 60 in 2 weeks. Ryan's face lit up with an almost predatory smile. "Perfect. A big birthday dinner. Something extravagant, at the most exclusive restaurant in the city. Something that will draw attention. And guests?" Lena asked, already understanding the direction the plan was taking. "Yes, lots of guests. Julian's friends, important figures in the French community here, people whose opinion he values." "An audience," she said, comprehending. "A jury," Ryan corrected. The invitations were sent, drafted on imported paper, with elegant calligraphy. Ryan made sure they were impeccable, worthy of the man Julian pretended to be. A respected businessman, a gentle patriarch, a dedicated future father-in-law. The response was enthusiastic. Julian was visibly moved, or at least he pretended to be. He hugged Ryan tightly when he announced the dinner. "My son," he said. Using English with that accent Ryan now knew was purposefully exaggerated. "You didn't have to go to all this trouble." "It's no trouble at all," Ryan replied, smiling with a forced sincerity that hurt his face. "It's an honor for me to celebrate the man who gave me the greatest gift of my life, his daughter." The words were sweet as poisoned honey. Meanwhile, the second part of the plan was underway. Ryan's investigator had located 3 of Julian's former business partners, men who had been ruined by his schemes, men who until then had remained silent, fearing the Frenchman's power and influence. Ryan contacted each of them personally. Discreet meetings in anonymous offices, frank conversations about shared losses and the possibility of justice. "I don't want money," said the first, a Portuguese businessman who had lost everything 10 years earlier. "I just want him not to do this to anyone else." "That's exactly what I intend to ensure," Ryan assured him. The second was more hesitant, fearful of the consequences. "Julian has powerful friends," he warned, "And so do I," Ryan replied simply. The third was eager, almost feverish in his thirst for revenge. "He destroyed my family," he said, his hands trembling. "My wife left me. My children barely speak to me." "I understand," Ryan said softly, thinking of Lena and her father. "Some wounds never fully heal, but maybe we can stop him from causing more damage." All three agreed to participate. Not for money, although Ryan ensured their expenses were covered, but for the chance to see Julian finally face the consequences of his actions. The night of the dinner approached. Ryan and Lena reviewed the plan daily, adjusting details, anticipating problems. The stress began to show its effects. Ryan slept little, ate poorly. The constant tension of maintaining his facade in front of Isabella was taking its toll. One evening, Lena found him in his office, looking out the window at the illuminated city below. "You need to rest," she said, placing a cup of tea beside him. "I can't," he replied, without turning around. "Every time I close my eyes, I see her face. I see her smile. And now I know it was all a lie." Lena was silent for a moment, then approached him, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Not everything in this world is fake, Ryan. Some things are real. Some people are real." He turned, looking at her with tired but intense eyes. "Like you? Are you real, Lena?" "Yes," she said simply. "I am real." They stood like that for a moment, suspended in a silence that said more than words could. Then Ryan pulled away, returning to the documents scattered across his desk. 3 days, he said. "In 3 days it all ends." "And then?" "And then?" Lena asked. "And then we'll see what's left to rebuild." Le Jardin restaurant was the most exclusive in the city, an oasis of French elegance hidden in the heart of the metropolis. With its burgundy, velvet-lined walls, crystal chandeliers, and an internal garden where rare flowers bloomed regardless of the season. It was the perfect location for Julian's birthday dinner. Ryan had reserved the entire main dining room, something rarely done, and costing a small fortune. But for him, the price didn't matter. This would be the last expense he would make on behalf of the Dumont family. The tables were arranged in a semicircle around a main table where Julian would be the center of attention. The lighting was carefully planned so that nothing escaped the guests' eyes. The sound would be perfect, allowing voices to be heard clearly even in seemingly private conversations. Nothing had been left to chance. "Is everything ready?" Ryan asked, adjusting his tie in the mirror. Isabella appeared behind him, stunning in a red silk dress that matched her painted lips. She hugged him from behind, her eyes meeting his in the reflection. "Are you nervous, my love?" she asked, her voice soft as velvet. "You don't need to be. Dad is thrilled with the surprise." Ryan smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I hope he likes it. I planned some special surprises." Isabella laughed, the musical sound that had once enchanted him now sounding false to his ears. "You are so thoughtful. That's why I love you." The words, which should have been sweet, now tasted like ashes. Ryan wondered how many times she had rehearsed that phrase in front of the mirror, how many times she had calculated the exact effect it would have on him. "I love you too," he replied, the words coming out automatically, part of his role in the play that was coming to an end. When they arrived at the restaurant, Julian and Camille were already there, greeting the first guests. The French patriarch was radiant in his impeccable tuxedo, his grey hair perfectly combed, his posture erect and proud. Seeing Ryan, he opened his arms in an expansive gesture. "Ah, voilà, the man of the hour," he exclaimed in English, for the benefit of the Americans around. "The most generous son-in-law in the world." Ryan accepted the hug, feeling the falseness in every touch. "It's the least I can do for the father of the woman I love," he replied, his voice carrying a sincerity that surprised even himself. The evening began to unfold as planned. Guests arrived in waves, filling the room with animated conversations and laughter. The city's high society mingled with the French community, creating an elegant buzz that would serve as the perfect backdrop. Ryan circulated among the groups, the perfect host, attentive to every detail. His eyes occasionally sought out Lena, who was in the room not as a waitress but as a guest. He had introduced her as a friend, a French tutor who had helped him prepare a surprise speech for his father-in-law. Isabella had raised an eyebrow at the explanation, but hadn't questioned it. She was too busy shining under the admiring glances of the guests, showing off the engagement ring that had cost more than many would earn in a lifetime. Midnight struck. Waiters circulated, topping off champagne flutes, and Ryan rose, tapping his glass lightly to command attention. The ballroom gradually fell silent, all eyes turning toward him. John Paul smiled, anticipating the usual birthday speech, full of empty compliments and harmless jokes. "Good evening, everyone," Ryan began in Portuguese, his voice clear and steady. "We are here to celebrate an extraordinary man. A man who has brought significant changes to my life." He paused, looking directly at John Paul. "A man who taught me a great deal about trust, family, and business." John Paul smiled, nodding his head modestly. "I learned so much from him that I decided to study his native language, so I could properly express my admiration." And then, to the surprise of everyone, especially the Dumont family, Ryan continued in impeccable French. "Je voudrais porter un toast à l'homme qui m'a montré le vrai visage de la trahison." I would like to propose a toast to the man who showed me the true face of betrayal. John Paul's smile froze. Catherine visibly paled. Isabella dropped her fork, which clattered loudly against the fine china. "À l'homme qui pensait que je ne comprendrais jamais ses plans, ses mensonges, ses insultes." To the man who thought I would never understand his schemes, his lies, his insults. Most of the Brazilian guests looked confused, not understanding the sudden language switch, but the French attendees began to shift uncomfortably in their seats, exchanging worried glances. John Paul recovered quickly, forcing a laugh. "Ah, what a delightful surprise. You learned our language, but perhaps we should switch back to Portuguese so everyone can understand." "Oh, don't worry," Ryan replied, still in French. "I have something to help with that," he signaled, and a waiter brought over a device, placing it in the center of the table. It was a small Bluetooth speaker. I recorded some of our family conversations to preserve the memories, like that time at the bistro when you explained to Isabella how to get me to sign documents in French during our honeymoon, or when Catherine suggested you should rush the wedding before I could hire an independent attorney to review the prenuptial agreements. John Paul's face went from pale to crimson, the vein in his temple visibly pulsing. "Or perhaps," Ryan continued relentlessly, "the guests would like to hear Isabella describing how easy it was to make me believe she loved me. How she laughed while saying I was just a rich Brazilian fool too wealthy for my own good." "Ryan, are you insane?" Isabella hissed in Portuguese, grabbing his arm. "What are you doing?" He looked at her, seeing for the first time the real Isabella behind the mask of perfection. The panic in her eyes, the rage, the cold calculation as she tried to find a way out. "I'm just being honest," he replied, switching back to Portuguese. "Something you should try sometime." He turned back to the guests, many of whom were now watching the scene with a mixture of shock and morbid fascination. "I apologize for the spectacle," he said, "but I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to introduce some special friends of the birthday boy." With a gesture, he indicated 3 men who had stood up at different points in the room. Middle-aged men, well-dressed with grave expressions. "Ladies and gentlemen, meet Mr. Smith, Mr. Jones, and Mr. Rodriguez, former partners of John Paul Dumont, men who, like me, trusted him. Men who, unlike me, weren't lucky enough to discover the truth in time." John Paul stood up abruptly, knocking over his chair. "This is an outrage. Slander. I will sue you for defamation." "Please do," Ryan replied calmly. "I'd love to discuss these matters in court. With all the evidence I've collected." Picked up an envelope that had been under his chair and placed it on the table, including the documents your attorney in France prepared for me to sign during our honeymoon, documents that would transfer control of my companies to a holding company in your name, documents that your cousin so kindly sent me, thinking he was talking to Isabella. John Paul paled again. He looked at Isabella, who seemed equally horrified. "How?" she began. "How did I find out?" Ryan finished for her. "Let's just say not everyone in this city is for sale. Some people still have principles." His gaze met Lisa's for a brief moment. She was sitting silently, watching the scene unfold with quiet dignity. "I'd also like to introduce another special guest," Ryan continued, gesturing to a man approaching the main table. The man was middle-aged, wearing a discreet suit and a serious expression. He placed a badge on the table. "This is Detective Miller from the Federal Police. He has taken a great interest in the Dumont family's international business dealings, especially those related to currency evasion and document forgery." The silence in the room was absolute now. Catherine looked about to faint. Isabella glanced around frantically like a cornered animal. John Paul, however, seemed to have regained some of his composure. He smiled, a cold, calculating smile. "Impressive, Ryan, truly impressive. I underestimated you." He adjusted his jacket as if merely uncomfortable, not trapped. "But do you really think you can defeat me? A Brazilian against a Dumont? You have no idea who you're dealing with." "Actually, I know exactly who I'm dealing with," Ryan countered. "A criminal who was hidden for decades behind a prestigious surname and an affected accent." He turned to the room, his voice rising so everyone could hear. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the unexpected entertainment. It seems our birthday boy has an unavoidable commitment with the police. But please stay and enjoy the dinner. The chef has prepared a spectacular menu." He turned to John Paul one last time. "Happy birthday, John Paul. Consider this my gift, the opportunity to finally face the truth." Detective Miller approached John Paul, discreetly showing him a document. "Mr. Dumont, we need you to accompany us to provide some clarification." Catherine finally found her voice. "This is absurd. We are French citizens. We have immunity." "Immunity does not apply to fraud committed on Brazilian territory, ma'am," the detective replied dryly. "And your residency visas are currently under review." Isabella stepped between the detective and her father. "Ryan, you can't do this. I'm your fiancé. We're getting married in 3 weeks." Ryan looked at her for a long moment, seeing the woman he had fallen for, to whom he had given his heart, his future. Now she looked like a stranger. "No, Isabella, we're not." He gently slipped the engagement ring off her finger and placed it on the table. "This is yours by right. Consider it a small fraction of what you expected to gain from me. The last you will ever see." Officers discreetly escorted John Paul out of the room, followed by Catherine, who looked like she had aged 10 years in minutes. Isabella followed them, but not before shooting Ryan a look that mixed hatred and disbelief. In the ballroom, guests began whispering furiously among themselves. The scandal would be the talk of São Paulo high society for months. Ryan remained standing, feeling the weight of the past few months finally begin to dissipate. He looked at Lisa, who watched him with a mixture of admiration and concern. Slowly, he walked over to her, ignoring the stares and whispers around him. "It's over," he said simply, extending his hand to her. She took it without hesitation. "Yes, it is. And now?" "Now," he said, a genuine smile appearing on his lips for the first time in months. "Now we can begin." The following days were a whirlwind of depositions, documents, and meetings with lawyers. The press desperately tried to get details of the scandal that had rocked São Paulo's elite. Ryan refused all interviews, keeping out of the spotlight. John Paul and Catherine were released on bail but had their passports confiscated. They could not leave the country while the investigations proceeded. Isabella disappeared. Rumors indicated she had sought refuge at a friend's house, far from curious eyes and uncomfortable questions. Ryan looked at the empire he had built, the companies that had almost been stolen from him, with new eyes. His life's work, once just a status symbol, now represented something different: his resilience, his strength, his capacity to survive. Lisa continued working at the bistro, refusing Ryan's offers to help her financially. "That's not why I helped you," she explained when he insisted. "I don't want your money, Ryan. I never did." "Then what do you want?" he asked, genuinely curious. She smiled, that honest, warm smile that had been his beacon in the storm. "I want to see you happy, truly happy. Not Ryan from the business magazine. Not the millionaire. Just Ryan the man." Her words touched something deep inside him, something that had been buried under years of ambition, achievement, and most recently betrayal. "What if I told you I don't know who that man is anymore?" "Then," she replied, her eyes shining with a silent promise, "I'd love to meet him when you find him." When the doors of the bistro closed behind the police officers and the broken family he had almost called his own, a deep, heavy silence settled over the room. The few remaining customers were discreetly dismissed. The sound of the piano did not return. For the first time, Ryan was in that place without the background noise of manufactured happiness. Only he, Lisa, and the invisible wreckage of a life that never existed remained. He stood by the empty table, looking at the spot where Isabella had been sitting. Her champagne flute was still half full, the bubbles slowly rising to the surface. Indifferent to the drama that had unfolded, the adrenaline that had sustained him throughout the night began to dissipate, leaving behind a vast, aching emptiness. It wasn't the sharp pain of the initial betrayal, but a dull ache, the mourning for a love he now understood to be an illusion. Lisa approached in silence, not as an employee, but as a sentinel. She said nothing, just stood a respectful distance away, her presence an anchor of reality in that sea of chaos. "It's over," Ryan said, more to himself than to her. The word sounded hollow in the empty room. "Yes," she replied softly. "It's over." He finally turned to face her. The dim light of the room cast shadows on her face, but he could see the strength and compassion in her eyes. In that moment, he realized the magnitude of the risk she had taken for him. She, a waitress, faced a wealthy and cunning family for a man who was until then just a customer. "Lisa, he began, but the words seemed insufficient, banal. "Saying thank you feels like an insult to your courage." "You don't need to say anything, Ryan," she said. "I did what any decent person should do." "Decency shouldn't require thanks." He took a step toward her. "But it does. You didn't just save me from losing my money. You saved me from being a fool for the rest of my life. You gave me the truth, and that is priceless." He paused, emotion catching in his voice. "I feel like I've woken up from a 2-year coma." The next morning, a pale spring sun illuminated the city. Ryan hadn't slept. He spent the night awake, not dwelling on the past, but rather, for the first time in a long time, contemplating a future that was a blank canvas. In the morning, he didn't call his assistants or lawyers. His first stop was a neighborhood flower shop, far from the luxury stores he usually frequented. He chose the flowers himself, a huge, exuberant bouquet of sunflowers, so full of life and honesty that they seemed to radiate warmth. He drove to the address Lisa had given him, a simple, tidy building in a quiet part of the city. When she opened the door, she was dressed in jeans and a simple t-shirt, her hair loose over her shoulders. Without the uniform, she looked younger, more real. Her eyes widened at the size of the bouquet. "Sunflowers," she whispered, a genuine smile spreading across her face. "How did you know?" "I didn't know," Ryan admitted, "but they just felt right. Like you." She invited him in. The apartment was small but cozy, and full of books and plants. There was no pretense, just the comfort of a real home. They sat in the small kitchen, with the bouquet dominating the table between them, and drank coffee. There, away from the artificial luxury of his life, Ryan felt more at home than in his own mansion. "I always watched you during lunch," Lisa confessed, stirring her cup. "You looked lonely. Even when you were on top of the world, you seemed to carry a weight. When I heard them talking about you that way, with such contempt for your trusting nature, I felt a rage that surprised me. They saw your kindness as a weakness to be exploited. I saw it as your greatest strength." Her words touched him deeply. No one, not even Isabella, had ever looked past his wealth to see the man beneath it. The alliance forged in crisis began to transform into something deeper, quieter. Gratitude gave way to admiration, admiration to affection. They started seeing each other, not at expensive dinners or gala events, but on walks through Ibirapuera Park, visits to the MASP on free admission days, movie sessions at an old cinema in Pinheiros that showed classic films. Ryan discovered the joy of simple things, the peace of a conversation that had no hidden agenda. With Lisa, he could talk about his fears, his hopes, the poor kid from the periphery he had been before building his empire. He could be vulnerable. He asked her to continue teaching him French. The language, which had once been a symbol of his exclusion, became their intimate language. They laughed at his pronunciation mistakes, and she wrote words on napkins for him, not with names of fraudulent lawyers, but with terms of affection. Mon cœur, mon amour. Ryan's life was changing in other ways too. The scandal involving the Dumonts had spread quickly through São Paulo high society. Many of his supposed friends now avoided him, not wanting to be associated with the controversy. Invitations to parties and events dwindled. Calls from business partners became more formal, more cautious. But surprisingly, Ryan didn't care. In fact, he felt relieved, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. The social obligations, the appearances to be maintained, the constant theater of high society, all of it now seemed empty and meaningless. A month after the incident, Ryan was in his office when his assistant announced an unexpected visit. To his surprise, it was Catherine Dumont. She entered with her usual elegance, but something had changed. The arrogant pride had been replaced by a tired resignation. The lines around her eyes seemed deeper, her gaze duller. "Mr. Oliveira," she said formally in Portuguese, "thank you for receiving me without notice." Ryan indicated a chair, keeping his face neutral. "What can I do for you, Mrs. Dumont?" Catherine sat down, her back straight as always, but there was a new fragility in her gestures. "I came to ask, not for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it, and frankly, I'm not here for that." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I came to make a deal." Ryan raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite himself. "What kind of deal?" "John Paul and I are ruined, as you well know. Not just financially, but socially. We cannot return to France to face the disgrace that awaits us there. We have nowhere to go. And this interests me because..." Catherine took a deep breath. "Drop the charges. Allow us to leave Brazil discreetly. In exchange, we will disappear from your life. Forever. You will never hear from us again." Ryan studied her for a long moment. He thought of everything that family had tried to take from him, the humiliation, the manipulation, the lies. "And Isabella?" he finally asked. A shadow crossed Catherine's face. "My daughter. She made her choices. She is no longer with us." "Sais, what does that mean?" "It means she found other sponsors, people less scrupulous than you." Catherine looked out the window, a barely disguised expression of disgust on her face. "I always underestimated her ambition. I think she is more her father's daughter than I'd like to admit." Ryan felt an unexpected pang of pity, not for Catherine, but for the shattered family before him, for the way greed had corroded any genuine love that might have existed between them. "Mrs. Dumont," he said finally, "I will not drop the charges. What you did was not just against me, but against many others over the years. Justice needs to run its course." Catherine nodded, as if she had expected this answer. She stood up, smoothing her impeccable dress. "As you wish, Mr. Oliveira. It was a mistake to come here." She turned to leave, but Ryan called out to her. "However," he continued, "I can speak to the detective. Request that he consider your cooperation if you and your husband provide information about all your previous schemes. Perhaps that will mitigate the sentence." Catherine looked at him with a mixture of surprise and suspicion. "Why would you do that?" Ryan shrugged. "Because, unlike you, I gain nothing from the suffering of others, even if it is deserved." After Catherine left, Ryan remained in his office, contemplating the strange feeling the encounter had left. It wasn't satisfaction at the ruin of his enemies as he might have expected. It was something more complex, a mixture of relief and melancholy. He picked up the phone and dialed a familiar number. "Lisa, can we meet? I need to talk to you." They met at a small cafe on Paulista Avenue, a busy place where no one would pay attention to them. When he told her about Catherine's visit, he saw concern grow in Lisa's eyes. "What are you thinking?" he asked finally. "I'm thinking you are a better man than they ever imagined," she replied simply, offering help even after everything they did. Ryan shook his head. "It's not kindness, it's, I don't know, maybe I just want to close this chapter once and for all." "And what comes next?" Lisa asked, her voice soft. Ryan looked at her, at the face that had become so dear to him in such a short time. A face without masks, without hidden agendas. "I'm not sure, but I hope you're part of it." Her smile was like the sun breaking through the clouds after a storm. In the following weeks, Ryan began to reorganize his life. He gradually distanced himself from the social circle that had been so important to Isabella. He sold the ostentatious mansion in Jardim, America that never truly felt like home, and bought a smaller yet still elegant apartment in Itaim Bibi with a view of Parque do Povo. His companies continued to prosper, but he delegated more responsibilities, allowing himself time to breathe, to rediscover simple pleasures he had forgotten in his meteoric rise. Lisa continued working at the bistro, insisting on maintaining her independence. "I don't want to be another accessory in your life," she explained when he suggested she could stop working. "I like what I do, the connection with people." Ryan admired this integrity, so different from Isabella's unrestrained ambition. He started having lunch at the bistro more often, sometimes just watching Lisa work, appreciating the natural grace with which she moved between tables, the genuine kindness she offered every customer. One afternoon, as she was cleaning a table near his, Ryan noticed how the sunlight filtered through the bistro windows created a golden halo around her dark hair. She looked up, catching him watching her, and smiled that smile he now knew was reserved just for him. In that moment, Ryan realized he was falling in love again, not with the feverish, blind passion he had felt for Isabella, but with something deeper, calmer, truer. It was a frightening feeling. Isabella's betrayal had left scars, an instinctive distrust that sometimes woke him up in the middle of the night, sweating cold, questioning the intentions of everyone around him. But with Lisa, fear gradually gave way to trust. Not because she was perfect, she wasn't, with her occasionally explosive temper, her stubbornness, her own insecurities, but because she was real. Her imperfections made her human, trustworthy in a way that Isabella's polished perfection never was. One Sunday, they were strolling through the municipal market, sampling exotic fruits and watching the movement of the vendors, when Ryan suggested they go to the French bistro for dinner. Lisa stopped walking, looking at him in surprise. "Are you sure? You haven't set foot in there since." "Well, you know." Ryan nodded. "It's time to make new memories, better memories." The bistro seemed smaller now, less intimidating. The same crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, the same piano played softly in the background, but Ryan saw them with new eyes. No longer as symbols of unattainable sophistication, but simply as elements of a pleasant restaurant. They were greeted by the maitre d', who recognized Ryan immediately. His eyes widened when he saw Lisa beside him, not as a waitress, but as his date. "Mr. Oliveira, Ms. Mendez, welcome," he said, leading them to a table in the internal garden. Dinner was simple and perfect. They talked, laughed, shared childhood stories. Ryan told her about his early days in business, the mistakes he made, the lessons he learned. Lisa spoke about her father, a literature professor who had taught her to love books and value truth above all things. "He would be proud of you," Ryan said, covering her hand with his. "I think he would like you," she replied. "Despite all your wealth." Ryan laughed. "Or because of it?" Lisa shook her head, her eyes serious. "No. My father always said that a man's character is measured not by what he possesses, but by what he gives." "And what do I have to give, Lisa?" Ryan asked, the most sincere question he had ever posed. She intertwined her fingers with his. "Your honesty, your courage, your capacity to start over." Months passed. The case against John Paul and Catherine Dumont proceeded slowly in the Brazilian courts. Isabella had disappeared completely. Rumors placed her in Switzerland with an elderly banker, or in Monaco with a minor prince. Ryan rarely thought of her now. His world had changed, expanded in ways he never would have imagined. One warm autumn evening, it was Ryan who invited her to dinner. "I know a place," he said with a twinkle in his eye. He took her back to the bistro. The place was the same, but everything felt different. The maitre d' greeted them with renewed respect. They didn't sit at the large, ostentatious table from before, but in an intimate, discreet corner for two. When the waiter came to take their order, Ryan looked at Lisa, smiled, and in impeccable, fluid French ordered both their favorite dishes and a bottle of the best wine. The waiter walked away, impressed. Lisa looked at him, her eyes shining in the candlelight. "Your pronunciation is perfect," she said. "I had the best teacher," he replied, taking her hand across the table. The touch was no longer repulsive, but electric, full of promise. I wanted to come here tonight to replace a bad memory with a good one. This place is no longer the scene of an ending. It is the scene of our beginning. He raised his glass. To truth. To a life without lies. To a life of truth. To truth, she replied, their glasses clinking softly. The sound echoed through the restaurant, not as a call to order or an announcement of betrayal, but as the start of a new song, their song. 6 months had passed since the night of the confrontation at the restaurant. The legal case against Jean-Paul Dumont had progressed slowly through the Brazilian legal system, dragging through preliminary hearings and procedural maneuvers. Ryan had moved on with his life. His relationship with Lisa flourished, growing steadily and naturally like a well-tended plant. They had found a comfortable rhythm, dividing their time between his apartment in Itaim Bibi and her small apartment in Pinheiros. On a sunny Sunday, as they walked hand-in-hand down Paulista Avenue, enjoying the street closed to cars, Ryan allowed himself a moment of reflection. He observed the families around them, the street artists, the improvising musicians. The simplicity of the scene touched him deeply. "What are you thinking about?" Lisa asked, noticing his distant gaze. "How things have changed," he replied. "A year ago, I'd be at some fancy event right now, surrounded by people I thought were my friends, with a woman I thought loved me." Lisa squeezed his hand gently. "Do you miss that life?" Ryan shook his head, smiling at her. "Not for a second. I was like an actor in an endless play. Now I'm just myself. And it's so much easier." She smiled back, her eyes shining with that sincerity he valued so much. "And you're very good at being yourself, you know?" They continued walking, occasionally stopping to watch a performance or enjoy the city view. It was a simple, true life, and Ryan discovered every day that it was all he truly wanted. On Monday, he arrived at the office early, refreshed by the relaxing weekend. His assistant, Clara, greeted him with her usual efficiency. "Good morning, Mr. Oliveira. Your schedule today includes the meeting with investors at 10 a.m., lunch with Mr. Mendez from Horizon Construction at noon," and she hesitated. Something unusual in her well-rehearsed routine. "And?" Ryan prompted. Clara looked uncomfortable. "And there is a person waiting to see you." She didn't have an appointment, but she insisted it was important. She said she would wait as long as necessary. Ryan frowned. "Who?" She identified herself as Isabella Dumont. The name dropped like a stone into the tranquil lake his life had become. Isabella. After months of silence, after having completely disappeared from his life, she was here, in his office. "How long has she been waiting?" "Since I arrived an hour ago," Clara replied. "Should I ask her to leave?" Ryan considered the idea for a moment. It would be easy to simply send her away, refuse to see her, continue his life as if she had never reappeared. But something inside him, curiosity perhaps, or the need for definitive closure, stopped him. "No, I'll see her. But first, call Dr. Martin and ask him to come immediately. I want my lawyer present during this conversation." Clara nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "Yes, sir. Should I offer Ms. Dumont anything while she waits?" Ryan almost laughed at the formality. "Coffee is fine. And Clara, please stay nearby. I don't want to be alone with her at any point." While waiting for his lawyer to arrive, Ryan tried to mentally prepare for the encounter. Which Isabella would he see today? The charming, passionate woman he thought he knew? The cold manipulator who had been exposed that night at the restaurant? Or some new version created for whatever purpose brought her here? When Dr. Martin arrived, Ryan felt more secure. The lawyer was an experienced man who had helped navigate the legal process against the Dumonts with skill and discretion. "Remember," Dr. Martin advised as they headed to the conference room where Isabella was waiting, "make no promises. Admit nothing and absolutely do not sign anything." Ryan nodded. "Don't worry. I learned my lesson the hard way." Upon entering the room, Ryan barely recognized the woman sitting at the table. Isabella was thinner. Her face had lost that silky softness that had once enchanted him. Her eyes, still incredibly blue, seemed harder, colder. She wore an elegant but discreet suit, very different from the extravagant clothes she used to wear. She stood up when she saw them, a hesitant smile on her lips. "Ryan," she said, her voice still carrying that melody he knew so well. "Thank you for seeing me. Ms. Dumont, he replied formally, indicating Dr. Martin beside him. This is my attorney who will be present during our conversation. Her smile wavered slightly, but she maintained her composure. Understandable. May I sit? Ryan gestured affirmatively, taking a seat on the other side of the table, maintaining a safe distance between them. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence grew, filling the room with palpable tension. Finally, Isabella took a deep breath and began to speak. I know you must hate me, she said, her hands clasped on the table. You have every right. What we did? What I did was unforgivable. Ryan remained silent, his face a neutral mask. He wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing any emotion, whether anger or hurt. I didn't come to ask for forgiveness, she continued, realizing he wouldn't respond. I know that would be asking too much. I came because I'm in a difficult situation, Ryan. I imagine so, he finally replied, his voice cold. Your father is facing serious charges. Your reputation is ruined. It must be hard to find a new victim when everyone knows your history. Isabella visibly winced at the harsh words, but recovered quickly. I deserve that, she said, lowering her eyes. I deserve that and much more. But it's not for me that I'm here. She paused as if gathering courage. It's for my mother. Ryan raised an eyebrow, surprised by the direction the conversation was taking. Catherine, she came to see me a few months ago, remember? I offered help within the limits of the law. What more could she want? She's sick, Ryan, Isabella said, her voice breaking slightly. Very sick, cancer, advanced stage. The doctors give her a few months. Ryan exchanged a look with his lawyer. Dr. Martin maintained a neutral expression, but his eyes warned of caution. Ryan turned back to Isabella. I'm sorry to hear that, truly, but I still don't understand what this has to do with me. Isabella straightened her shoulders, as if preparing for the true purpose of her visit. She wants to die in France. Ryan, she wants to spend her last days in her homeland, but she can't leave Brazil while the process continues. I came to ask, to beg if necessary for you to drop the charges against her. Just against her. My father can face the consequences of his actions, but let my mother go home. Ryan studied her face, looking for signs of falsehood, of manipulation. He found something that seemed genuine, concern, fear, even love. But after everything that had happened, how could he trust his perception? Do you have medical documents? He asked. Something that proves what you're saying? Isabella nodded, opening a folder she had brought with her. All the exams, diagnoses, specialist evaluations. You can check with the doctors directly if you wish. Ryan passed the documents to Dr. Martin, who quickly examined them. They look legitimate, the lawyer murmured. But we would need independent confirmation, of course. Ryan nodded, turning back to Isabella. Even if it's true, why should I help? Your mother was as involved as your father in the scheme to rob me. She showed no compassion, no remorse. I know, Isabella replied, and for the first time Ryan saw tears in her eyes. I know we have no right to ask anything of you, but I'm asking anyway. Not for me or for her, but for the human being that you are, Ryan. The good man that I should have truly valued. She wiped away a tear, continuing before he could respond. My mother made terrible mistakes. I did too. But she's dying, Ryan, and no one should die far from home. Ryan felt a confusion of emotions inside him. Part of him wanted to reject the request immediately, to see Isabella and her family face all the consequences of their actions. But another part, the part that Lisa had helped strengthen in him, hesitated. I need to think, he finally said, and verify this information. Of course, Isabella quickly agreed. All I ask is that you consider it. There's a number in that folder where you can reach me. I'm staying at the Maxud Plaza Hotel. She stood up, adjusting her purse on her shoulder. Thank you for listening to me, Ryan. I know I didn't deserve even that. As she headed for the door, Ryan couldn't help but ask, Where have you been all this time, Isabella? She stopped without fully turning around. In Paris, initially. Then Geneva, trying to start over, I guess. It didn't work out very well. And the Swiss banker, the Prince of Monaco. Were the rumors true? A sad smile appeared on her lips. Rumors are always partially true, aren't they? There were men, yes. There are always men willing to help a desperate woman, but nothing like what we had, or what I pretended we had. With that, she left, leaving behind only the faint scent of a perfume Ryan once associated with happiness. Dr. Martin waited for the door to close before speaking. "You're not actually considering her request, are you?" Ryan rubbed his face, suddenly exhausted. "I don't know. If Catherine really is dying..." "Even if she is," the lawyer interrupted, "remember who these people are. Professional manipulators. This could just be another trick to get what they want." "I know," Ryan agreed. "Believe me, I know better than anyone. But if it's true..." He didn't finish the sentence. Instead, he picked up the phone and dialed a familiar number. "Lisa? Can we meet for lunch? Something happened that we need to discuss." They met at a small restaurant near Ryan's office, a simple, cozy place they had discovered together. When he told her about Isabella's visit, he saw the concern grow in Lisa's eyes. "Do you believe her?" Lisa asked after hearing the whole story. Ryan stirred his coffee, considering the question. "I don't know. Part of me wants to believe that not even Isabella would use her mother's illness as manipulation. But another part doesn't trust her anymore," Lisa finished. "Nor should you. What would you do?" he asked, valuing her opinion more than any other. Lisa thought for a moment, her eyes fixed on the cup in front of her. "I would verify the story first," she finally said. "If it's true, if Catherine really is dying, I think you should consider the request." Ryan looked at her in surprise. "After everything they did?" Lisa met his gaze, her eyes clear and direct as always. "Yes, exactly because of that. Because you are better than them, Ryan. Because you can choose compassion even when they chose cruelty." Her words touched something deep inside him, a truth he had discovered in recent months. True strength was not in revenge, but in the capacity to show mercy. He reached across the table, holding her hand. "How did you get so wise?" She smiled, that smile that lit up her entire face. "I learned from my father, and now I'm learning from you." In the days that followed, Ryan took Lucy's advice. He hired independent doctors to verify Catherine's diagnosis. He consulted his lawyers about the legal implications of dropping the charges against her, but maintaining the case against Jean-Pierre. When all the confirmations arrived, Catherine Dumont truly was terminally ill. Ryan made his decision. He scheduled a meeting with Isabella, this time at a neutral coffee shop, a public place where there would be no room for misinterpretation. Dr. Martin accompanied him again, as did Lucy at Ryan's specific request. Isabella looked surprised to see Lucy, a flash of something, recognition, resentment, quickly crossing her face. "Thank you for coming," Ryan said after everyone was seated. "I verified the information you gave me. I spoke with the doctors. Your mother really is sick." Isabella nodded, her eyes welling up. "Yes, it's real. I've decided to drop the charges against her," Ryan continued. "My lawyers are preparing the necessary paperwork. Catherine should be able to return to France within a week if everything goes as planned." The relief on Isabella's face was palpable. "Ryan, I don't know how to thank you." He raised his hand, cutting her off. "I'm not doing this for you or for her. I'm doing this because it's the kind of person I want to be." His gaze shifted to Lucy for a brief moment, finding in her the strength and approval he needed. "The charges against Jean-Pierre remain," he continued, looking back at Isabella. "He will face the consequences of his actions, and that is the most I can do." Isabella nodded, accepting the terms without argument. "I understand, and I thank you anyway. This means a lot to my mother." She hesitated, looking at Lucy. "You must be the waitress, the one who spoke French." Lucy met Isabella's gaze without flinching. "Yes, that's me." "I should hate you," Isabella said with a sad smile. "You ruined everything." "No," Lucy corrected, her voice calm but firm. "You ruined everything. I just brought the truth to light." Isabella studied her for a moment, then laughed softly. "You're right, of course. And looking at you now, I see what Ryan sees. An honesty I never had." She turned back to Ryan. "You chose well this time. Better than you deserved." Ryan didn't respond, but under the table his hand found Lucy's, squeezing it lightly. Isabella stood up, ready to leave. "I suppose we won't see each other again. I plan to accompany my mother to France and stay there." "That's for the best," Ryan agreed. She nodded, picking up her purse. But before she left, she turned one last time. "Out of curiosity, how did you find out? That night, how did you know we were plotting against you?" Ryan looked at Lucy, then back at Isabella. Someone saw past the surface and cared enough to warn me. A final look of understanding passed over Isabella's face. I see, I guess we underestimated the wrong people. With that, she was gone, exiting their lives as abruptly as she had entered, leaving behind only the memory of a dream that was never real. When she disappeared into the crowd, Ryan turned to Lucy, seeing in her everything Isabella could never be. Genuine? Strong, real. Do you think I did the right thing? He asked. Lucy smiled, intertwining her fingers with his. I think you followed your heart, and that's why I love you. The words spoken there in that ordinary coffee shop, in the middle of an ordinary afternoon, were anything but ordinary. It was the first time she had said those 3 words, and they fell between them like a precious, fragile gift. I love you too, he replied, the words coming out easily, naturally, without the drama or grandeur of before, but with a truth that echoed in every syllable. And there, under the discreetly approving gaze of Dr. Martin, they sealed their promise with a simple kiss, a kiss that spoke of new beginnings, second chances, and the courage to believe in love once more. A year had passed since the day Lucy warned Ryan about the Dumonts' plan. A year of transformations, discoveries, and above all, truth. Jean-Pierre Dumont had been sentenced to 5 years in prison for fraud and conspiracy, although he was appealing the sentence. Catherine, released from the charges thanks to Ryan's intervention, had returned to France where, according to occasional news, she was fighting the illness that consumed her. Isabella had completely vanished from their lives after that last meeting at the coffee shop. Social media occasionally showed her in Paris or the French Riviera, always at elegant parties, always with a smile that Ryan now recognized as rehearsed. She seemed to have found a new path, far from Brazil and the consequences of her family's actions. Ryan's life had taken a completely different direction. His relationship with Lucy flourished, based on mutual trust and respect that he had never experienced before. They had found a balance, a comfortable routine that respected both their independence while cultivating their union. Lucy continued working at the bistro, now as manager, a position she had earned on her own merit. Ryan continued leading his companies, but with a new philosophy that prioritized not just profit, but the positive impact his businesses could have on society. Together, they had created a small project, a foundation that offered scholarships to talented young people from the outskirts of São Paulo, giving them the chance Ryan wished he had had in his youth. The idea arose during one of their long evening conversations. When Ryan had confided in Lucy how much he had struggled to earn his place in the business world, facing prejudice and closed doors at every turn. That Saturday morning, Ryan woke up to the sound of rain gently tapping against the apartment window. Lucy was still sleeping beside him, her face serene, her hair spread across the pillow. He watched her for a moment, marveling at the simplicity of the scene and the depth of the feeling she awakened in him. Careful not to wake her, he got up and went to the kitchen to make coffee. While the espresso machine worked, he looked out the window at the city stretching below. Grey under the persistent rain, São Paulo, the relentless metropolis, seemed softer that morning, as if the rain washed away its usual harshness. Ryan thought about how his perception of the city had changed over the past year. The same buildings, the same streets, the same sky, but now seen through eyes that had learned to value the authentic over the prestigious, the real over the apparent. "Good morning," Lucy said, entering the kitchen with messy hair and wearing one of his shirts. "Have you been up long?" He smiled, handing her a cup of coffee. "Just long enough to admire the view and make coffee." She took a sip, closing her eyes in pleasure. Perfect as always." They sat at the breakfast table, a Saturday routine they had established. Ryan enjoyed these quiet moments, when they could simply be together without rush or pretense. "I have a proposition," he said, after a few minutes of light conversation. "How about we travel? A week, maybe 2? Anywhere you want." Lucy's eyes sparkled with interest. "A trip? That sounds wonderful. But what about the bistro and your companies?" Ryan shrugged. "The bistro can survive without you for a few days. You trained your team well. And as for my companies, well, that's what vice presidents are for." She laughed, shaking her head in admiration. Who would have thought the powerful Ryan Oliveira would ever say something like that? "You've changed. Changed for the better, I hope," he replied, taking her hand across the table. "Definitely for the better," she confirmed. "So where would we go?" Ryan hesitated for a moment. Actually, I had a specific place in mind, but I want it to be your choice. What place? She asked, curious. Paris. The word hung between them, loaded with meaning. Paris, the city that had been the center of so many of the Dumont's plans. The city Ryan once associated with betrayal and pain. Lucy studied him for a moment, her eyes serious. Why? Ryan took a deep breath. Because Paris shouldn't always be associated with them in our story. Because it's a beautiful city that deserves to be seen through new eyes. Her eyes, he paused, squeezing her hand. Because I want to create new memories there with you. A slow smile spread across Lucy's face. I would love to go to Paris with you, Ryan. That would be perfect. And so, 2 weeks later, they boarded the overnight flight to the French capital. The trip was smooth, filled with soft conversations and shared expectations. Lucy had never been to Europe before, and her excitement was contagious. When they arrived, Paris greeted them with a clear sky and gentle sun, illuminating the zinc rooftops and ornate facades that made the city so distinctive. Ryan had booked a suite in a small boutique hotel in the Marais, away from the most obvious tourist spots, but still central enough for them to explore on foot. The first few days were dedicated to the classics: the Louvre, the Eiffel Tower, Notre Dame under reconstruction after the fire. Lucy absorbed everything with eager eyes, her fluent French charming the Parisians and opening doors to experiences that ordinary tourists rarely had. Ryan rediscovered the city through her. Where before he only saw opulence and exclusivity, the Michelin-starred restaurants, the designer shops, the private clubs that Isabella valued so much. Now he noticed the beauty in the small things, a simple breakfast at a neighborhood bakery, the sunset viewed from the banks of the Seine, the murmur of conversations in the public gardens. On the morning of the 5th day, they were walking through the Luxembourg Gardens when Ryan made an unexpected suggestion. What do you say we have dinner at Le Grand Véfour tonight? Lucy looked at him in surprise. Le Grand Véfour was one of the most prestigious and historic restaurants in Paris, frequented by celebrities and politicians, with a waiting list that stretched for months. How would you get a reservation like that last minute? She asked, genuinely curious. Ryan gave an enigmatic smile. Let's just say I planned ahead a little. You planned this before you even invited me on the trip. Lucy looked impressed and a little confused. Why? That's not really our style. It was true. They had developed a shared taste for more authentic, less pretentious places. The restaurants they frequented most in São Paulo were those where the food and atmosphere spoke louder than status. Trust me, Ryan said, his eyes twinkling with a contained secret. There's a reason. Lucy agreed, too intrigued to refuse. That night, she wore the only formal dress she had brought, a simple but elegant black number. Ryan, in his well-cut suit, looked more like the successful businessman he was and less like the relaxed man of the past few days. Le Grand Véfour received them with the expected pomp of a historic restaurant that had been serving the Parisian elite since 1784. Gilded mirrors, classic paintings and crystal chandeliers adorned the room, creating an atmosphere of opulence that harked back to another era. The maître led them to a special table in a discreet corner of the main dining room, overlooking the Palais Royal gardens. Ryan noticed that Lucy, normally so comfortable in any environment, seemed a little tense. Is everything okay? He asked after the sommelier served the champagne they had ordered. She gave a small smile. Yes, it's just that this place is so different from everything we normally do together. It reminds me of Isabella and the Dumonts, he completed, understanding immediately. Of their world. Lucy nodded, a little embarrassed. Sorry, it's silly. The place is beautiful, really. Ryan took her hand across the table. It's not silly. And that's exactly why we're here. He paused, choosing his words carefully. When we met, I was trapped in a world of appearances. A world where restaurants like this were symbols of status, not places to truly enjoy a meal. A world where the people I believed were my family used places like this as a backdrop for their schemes. Lucy listened intently, her eyes fixed on his. You showed me a different world. Lucy, a world of truth, simplicity, of real connections, and for that, I am eternally grateful. He squeezed her hand gently. But I also realize that we can't just avoid places like this forever, as if they were contaminated by the past. The problem was never the restaurant or the city or any place. The problem was the people and their intentions. She smiled, understanding. So we're here to reclaim these spaces, to create new memories. Exactly, Ryan confirmed. To show that we can be anywhere, as long as we are truly ourselves there. Dinner proceeded at a slow, pleasurable pace. The food was, as expected, exceptional, each dish a gastronomic work of art. But for Ryan, the real pleasure was watching Lucy gradually relax, seeing her appreciate the experience without reservation, sharing honest comments with her about every flavor, every texture. It was between dessert and coffee that Ryan finally revealed the true purpose of the evening. "There's something else I want to discuss with you," he said, his voice suddenly more serious. Lucy looked at him, an eyebrow raised in curiosity. "Sounds important." "It's the most important thing I've ever discussed with anyone," he confirmed. He took a deep breath, gathering the courage for the words he had mentally rehearsed for days. "Lucy, this last year has been the truest of my life. You taught me the value of honesty, not just with others, but with myself. You showed me that true wealth lies in the genuine connections we make, in the people we choose to have by our side." He paused, noticing how her eyes were beginning to shine with the understanding of what was coming. "I love you. Not as I loved before, based on illusions or expectations, but as a man who clearly sees who you are and loves every part of it, every flaw, every quality." With a fluid movement, he took something from the inside pocket of his jacket, a small, dark blue velvet box. "I'm not offering you an empire or a life of luxury or grand promises. I'm just offering you the truth, that I want to spend the rest of my life building something real with you." He opened the box, revealing a simple but elegant ring, a solitaire sapphire surrounded by small diamonds. "Lucy Mendez, will you give me the honor of marrying me?" Time seemed to freeze. The restaurant's buzz faded, leaving only the sound of their hearts beating in sync. Lucy's eyes, filled with unshed tears, never left his as she processed the moment. The question, the profound meaning behind it. Then, slowly, a smile illuminated her face, starting at her lips and spreading until it reached her eyes, transforming her into the most beautiful vision Ryan had ever contemplated. "Yes," she replied, her voice steady despite the emotion. "Yes, Ryan Oliveira, I will marry you." He slid the ring onto her finger, the deep blue stone matching her personality perfectly, not ostentatious, but with an undeniable beauty that shone from within. When their lips met across the table, sealing the promise made, Ryan felt a certainty he had never experienced before. This was not a decision based on social expectations or the illusion of a perfect family. It was a conscious choice, made by two adults who had seen the worst in each other and still chose love. That night, as they walked hand in hand along the banks of the Seine, the Eiffel Tower sparkling in the distance, Ryan thought about the extraordinary journey that had brought them there. From an urgent warning whispered in a dark hallway to a marriage proposal in one of the most romantic restaurants in Paris. Life had taken many turns, but every curve, every obstacle, every moment of pain had led to this perfect present and the promise of a future built on the most solid of foundations, the truth. "What are you thinking about?" Lucy asked, noticing his contemplative silence. Ryan smiled, squeezing her hand. "I'm thinking that sometimes you have to lose everything to find what truly matters." Lucy nodded, understanding perfectly. "And sometimes you have to serve a lot of coffee to find the right person to serve the rest of your life with." They laughed together, the sound echoing lightly in the Parisian night, a prelude to many laughs that would come in the following years. Paris, the city Ryan once associated with betrayal, would now forever be the place where he and Lucy sealed their commitment to truth, to genuine love, to a life built not on appearances, but on the solid foundation of honesty. The ring on Lucy's finger occasionally caught the reflection of the city lights, a glittering reminder not of the jewel's material value, but of the invaluable worth of the promise it represented. A promise of truth in a world often built on lies. A promise that had begun with the whispered words of a courageous waitress, "You need to get out of here now." Words that, ironically, had been the start of a journey to the place where he truly belonged, by her side. The October sun bathed the garden of the country house outside São Paulo with a warm, golden light. Paper lanterns hung from the centuries-old trees, swaying gently in the afternoon breeze. Rustic wooden tables covered with white linen cloths and decorated with arrangements of sunflowers and lavender were arranged in a semicircle around a small gazebo. It was a simple yet elegant setting. No ostentation, no exaggeration, just the natural beauty of the Brazilian landscape enhanced by delicate touches, exactly as Ryan and Lucy had envisioned for their wedding day. In the main house, converted into an elegant inn some years ago, Ryan adjusted his tie in front of the mirror. It wasn't an elaborate tuxedo like the one he had planned to wear for his wedding to Isabella, but a well-cut navy suit with a simple white shirt and a silk tie in a lighter shade of blue. He had opted for something that made him feel comfortable, something that reflected who he truly was, not who he thought he should be. "Nervous?" asked Rick, his childhood friend and best man, handing him a glass of whiskey. Ryan smiled, accepting the drink. "Strangely, no. It's the first time in my life I've been absolutely sure about something." Rick clapped him on the shoulder in approval. "That's how it should be. You and Lucy, you make sense, you know? In a way that you and Isabella never did. You never liked her, did you?" Ryan asked, curious. Rick shrugged. "Let's just say I always felt she was playing a role. Lucy is real. Anyone can see that." Ryan nodded, thoughtful. Even his closest friends had noticed what he, blinded by the desire to belong, had failed to see. A late lesson on the importance of trusting the instincts of those who truly cared about him. On the other side of the house, in a room illuminated by the afternoon sun, Lucy finished getting ready, assisted by her younger sister, Mariah, and her best friend, Teresa. "You look stunning," Mariah sighed, adjusting the delicate crown of white flowers in her sister's loose hair. Lucy looked at herself in the mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back. Her dress was a simple champagne silk creation, flowing to the floor in soft, elegant lines. No elaborate embroidery, no exaggerated train, just the perfect drape of quality fabric over her body. "Do you think so?" she asked, insecure. "Isn't it too simple?" "It's perfect," Teresa assured, adjusting the dress strap. "It's you, Lucy. Elegant without being overdone, beautiful without trying to impress anyone." Lucy smiled, feeling the butterflies in her stomach. They weren't nervousness or doubt, but the pure emotion of knowing that in a few minutes she would be committing to the man who had entered her life in the most unexpected way possible. A light knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. "May I come in?" came her father, Charles's voice. "Of course, Dad," she replied, turning to receive him. Charles Mendez entered the room, stopping at the door upon seeing his daughter dressed as a bride. His eyes, usually so contained, filled with emotion. "My daughter," he said, his voice choked. "You are beautiful." Lucy felt tears threatening to fall, but held back. "Thank you, Dad." Charles approached, taking her hands in his. "You know I always wanted the best for you. I always wanted you to find someone who valued you for who you are. Someone who saw the incredible woman I always saw." Lucy nodded, moved by the rare words from her father, always so economical in displays of affection. "When you started dating Ryan," he continued, "I confess I was worried. A rich, powerful man, fresh out of a complicated relationship. It seemed like a recipe for disaster." He smiled, squeezing her hands. "But then I met him. I saw how he looks at you, how he listens to you, how he respects you. I saw that he isn't with you despite who you are, but exactly because of who you are." "Oh, Dad," Lucy whispered, a tear finally escaping. "Watch the makeup," Mariah warned, rushing to grab a tissue. Charles laughed, gently wiping his daughter's tear. "What I mean is, I'm proud, Lucy. Proud of the woman you've become and happy that you found someone worthy of your love." In that moment, more than any jewel or expensive gift, her father's words were the most valuable treasure Lucy could receive. Outside, in the garden, the guests began to settle. It wasn't an extensive crowd. Ryan and Lucy had opted for an intimate ceremony, with only family and close friends. About 60 people, very different from the 300 guests Isabella had planned for their previous wedding. Among those present was the team from the bistro where everything had begun, now managed by Lucy and her partner Paul, who had bought the establishment from the former owner when he decided to retire. There were also executives from Ryan's companies who had become genuine friends over the past 2 years, as he transformed the corporate culture of his organizations. Curiously, Catherine Dumont was among the guests. Against all expectations, she had survived the cancer, a remission that doctors considered almost miraculous. She had come alone from France, after exchanging some surprisingly honest letters with Ryan over the past year. She was a discreet presence, dressed with the sober elegance that had always characterized her, but without the arrogance of before. The trials had changed Catherine, softening her edges, bringing a belated humility that had made her unexpectedly an ally. The music began, a soft melody played by a string quartet. Ryan took his place under the gazebo, next to the justice of the peace who would conduct the ceremony. His heart quickened when he saw Charles appear at the door of the house, offering his arm to Lucy. And then she was walking toward him, radiant under the golden light of the late afternoon, more beautiful than he had ever seen her. It wasn't the manufactured, calculated beauty he was used to in the business world and high social circles. It was an authentic beauty that came from within, from the sparkle in her eyes, the genuine smile on her lips, the quiet confidence in her steps. When she reached him, when their hands met, Ryan felt a certainty that transcended any doubt. This was the moment toward which his entire life had converged, without him knowing it. The ceremony was brief and meaningful. They had written their own vows, words that came from the heart, not cliches or grand promises. "Lucy," Ryan began, his voice firm despite the emotion, "before you I lived in a world of mirrors, where all I saw were reflections of what I wanted to see, of what others wanted me to see. You were the wind that shattered those mirrors, and that showed me reality in all its imperfect beauty." He squeezed her hands lightly, continuing, "I promise to love you not with empty words or grand gestures, but with the truth of every day. I promise to be by your side not as the man the world thinks I am, but as the man I am when we are together, imperfect, sometimes stubborn, but always sincere. I promise to build with you a life based not on appearances, but on substance, not on expectations, but on shared discoveries." Lucy's eyes shone with contained tears as she listened. When it was her turn, she took a deep breath, gathering the courage to speak in front of everyone. "Ryan," she began, her voice soft but clear, "I used to watch you at the restaurant day after day, and I saw a man divided between who he really was and who he thought he should be. When fate brought us together in that unexpected way, I didn't know we were starting a journey that would change our lives forever." She smiled, continuing, "I promise to love you not for what you have achieved or what you possess, but for the man I see when everyone else has stopped looking. I promise to challenge you when you forget your own truths, and support you when the world seems too heavy to carry alone. I promise to build with you not just a home, but a sanctuary where we can simply be ourselves, in all our truth." When they exchanged rings, simple bands of white gold, without unnecessary adornments, and were declared husband and wife, the kiss that sealed their union was not just a gesture of love, but a symbol of everything they had promised each other: truth, acceptance, genuine partnership. The celebration that followed perfectly reflected the couple's essence. Good food served with elegant simplicity, wines chosen for flavor rather than prestige, music that invited dancing without ostentation. Conversations flowed freely between tables, without the rigid protocol of the social events Ryan had frequented in the past. At one point in the evening, Ryan found Catherine sitting alone, observing the guests with a melancholic smile. "May I join you?" he asked, approaching with 2 glasses of champagne. Catherine looked up, surprised. "Of course. It is your wedding, after all." Ryan laughed softly, sitting down and offering one of the glasses. "Thank you for coming. It means a lot to me." Catherine accepted the drink, her eyes studying the man in front of her. "You are happy," she observed. "Truly happy. It's not just an appearance." "Yes," he confirmed simply. "I am." They were silent for a moment, watching Lucy converse animatedly with a group of friends on the other side of the garden. "You know," Catherine said finally, "when Jean-Pierre and I got married, it was a grand event in Paris. 300 guests, the cream of French society. A reception that lasted until dawn." She paused, taking a sip of champagne. "And yet, looking back, I can't remember a single moment of genuine joy from that day. It was all about impressing others, about keeping up appearances." Ryan looked at her in surprise. He had never expected such a confession from the always composed Catherine Dumont. "What happened to you?" he asked, curiosity overcoming prudence. "How did you go from a couple in love to, well, to what you became?" Catherine considered the question for a long moment. "Ambition," she finally replied. "In the beginning, it was just the desire to prosper, to give our daughter everything we didn't have. But over time, it became an insatiable hunger. Each achievement only fueled the desire for more." She sighed, a tired sound. "And somewhere along the way, we forgot to ask ourselves why. Why we wanted more, why it was never enough." She looked at Ryan directly, her clear eyes free of the arrogance that had once dominated them. "Don't make our mistakes, Ryan. Never lose sight of what truly matters. Never allow the more to become more important than the why." Ryan nodded, touched by the unexpected sincerity. "Thank you for the advice, and for being here today." "No," she replied, a genuine smile softening her face. "Thank you for allowing me to see that not everything we touch is condemned to turn to ashes." Before Ryan could respond, Lucy approached, radiant in her wedding dress. "May I steal my husband for a dance?" she asked, extending her hand to Ryan. "Certainly," Catherine replied, rising gracefully. "Congratulations, Lucy. You are a beautiful bride and, more importantly, an extraordinary person." Lucy looked at her in surprise but accepted the compliment with a gentle smile. "Thank you, Catherine. I really appreciate you coming." As Ryan led Lucy to the improvised dance floor, where other couples were already moving to the music, he couldn't help but reflect on the strange path life had traced. Who could have imagined on that tense night in the bistro hallway that 2 years later he would be dancing at his wedding with the waitress who saved him, while his ex-future mother-in-law watched with approval? "You're miles away," Lucy commented, noticing his distant gaze. Ryan turned his attention back to her, to the face that had become the center of his world. Just thinking about how unpredictable life is, how a single moment, a single decision can change everything. "Regretting it?" she teased, an eyebrow raised in amusement. "Not for a second," he replied, spinning her gently to the rhythm of the music. "You saved me, Lucy. Not just from their scheme, but from myself. From the person I was becoming." She shook her head, her eyes serious despite the smile. "No, Ryan, I just showed you the door. You chose to walk through it. You chose the truth, even when it was painful. You saved yourself." He pulled her closer, feeling the warmth of her body against his, the solidity of her presence. "Then let's say we saved each other," he proposed. "And we'll keep doing that every day for the rest of our lives." "Deal," she agreed, leaning in for a kiss that sealed yet another promise between them. The party continued late into the night, the lanterns illuminating the garden with a soft glow as the stars emerged in the spring sky. Laughter, music, sincere conversations. The celebration reflected exactly what Ryan and Lucy had built together, a space where truth was valued above appearances, where connections were genuine, where there was no need for masks or pretense. Much later, when most of the guests had left and only a few close friends remained, Ryan and Lucy escaped for a moment of privacy. Hand in hand, they walked to a small hill behind the property, from where they could see the lights of the party and, in the distance, the glow of the city. "Thank you," Ryan said softly, breaking the comfortable silence between them. "For what?" Lucy asked, resting her head on his shoulder. "For pulling me by the arm in that hallway. For saying those words that changed everything. You need to get out of here now." She laughed, the melodious sound echoing in the quiet night. Who would have thought a warning of danger would turn into an invitation to the greatest adventure of our lives? "Life has an interesting sense of humor," Ryan agreed. They stood there watching the night, two hearts that had found their way to each other through extraordinary circumstances. It wasn't a fairy tale. They had both lived long enough to know such things didn't exist. It was better, a real story with real pains and real joys, built on the solid foundation of mutual truth. "Ready to start the next chapter, Mrs. Oliveira?" Ryan asked, embracing her around the waist. Lucy smiled, looking at the man she had chosen as her life partner. "More than ready, Mr. Oliveira, more than ready." And under the starry sky of a perfect night, they sealed the promise with a kiss that spoke not only of passion, but of something much rarer and more precious, a true connection between two souls who had found, finally, their place in the world, by each other's side. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Ryan and Lucy has touched your hearts. To continue this emotional journey, we have prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories. Find it here by clicking to your left. If you enjoyed this narrative about truth and new beginnings, be sure to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Every day we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of human life. Don't miss our upcoming content. We look forward to your comments sharing which moment of this story touched you the most.